So I think that there is no need to tell that refugees, including students, of course, are at considerable risk of developing common mental disorders and in relation with traumatic experiences they have lived and in the past and in the present in the host society. But despite, what is important to tell, that despite these traumatic experiences, many refugees exhibit remarkable resilience and strength. Basically, they try to cope in active way with their difficulties. What is resilience? Resilience is ability to maintain stable and healthy levels of psychological functioning despite the experience of threatening events. And this aspect, psychological aspects, depends on various factors or interactions between various factors like individual factors, family, social, cultural, political, and also factors from the context. Among personal qualities or characteristics, we can find important internal resources like optimism, capacity of perseverance, and belief in one's own inner strength. And of course also having hope for a better future. Let's say that maybe students, refugee students, are a step ahead on that because they already found within themselves several of the qualities and strengths, and they found within themselves like capacities and knowledge, and they want to use these qualities. Then we have also importance of external support, which could be associated with different actors, like family, if there are family close, or if it's possible also to have contact with, let's say, family on distance, friends, and a larger community. Other factors that have been demonstrated in the literature, that it's religion and spirituality, basically strongly identified as a major factor contributing to refugee people's resilience. And several studies have shown that religion in different forms or spirituality is linked to enhancing a person's psychological and physical well-being. So, how we can support resilience? What can we do to help people to have, let's say, this kind of capacity within themselves? For the first, I think it's important to identify refugee students or any other category within refugees, of course, who are at high risk of, let's say, psychological problems or any kind of health problems, and try to support and help them. There are several, of course, specialized mental health services that may involve a wide range of treatments such as cognitive therapy, narrative therapy. Then in more recent years, there is diffusion of another quite efficient technique. I guess that many of you already know about this kind of technique. Is eye moment desensibilization and reprocessing, which is very, let's say, short technique and use it quite often with people who have lived any kind of traumatic experiences. But there are also several, let's say, limits of this kind of approach or barriers to accessing mental health care services. These barriers are a complex of multiple factors, like legal factors, economic, religious, cultural factors. Among those, we can basically find factors related to the cost of any kind of therapy or psychotherapy, especially if people choose to go private, to private service. And the problem also of waiting a long list for the public services. Then we have a limited number of, let's say, professionals or psychotherapists who are bilingual, what is very important for refugees for different reasons. Starting from the basically maybe limited knowledge of the language of the host community, and also of limited maybe possibility to describe and to express what they want to express, what they want to tell about their problems and what they have lived. Then also, if we want to use interpreters, there is problems because besides the cost, but also people do not want to talk about their problems in the front of somebody who is, let's say, a stranger, or there's problem of confidentiality, and maybe also a problem of telling about often traumatic experiences in the front of people they care about, like their children or their family, other members of their family. Then another important factors or barriers to refugees in choosing the mental health care services is lack of knowledge about existing treatments. And refugees, in addition, may have like different stereotypes about psychology stands about psychological treatments. Basically, there are these cultural differences. In other cultures, mental health and emotions are interpreted differently than maybe in our cultures. So what we can do about, let's say, supporting, is there any other innovative, different alternative ways to support refugees in searching mental health professionals or in finding any kind of support, psychological or social psychological support. I found within these innovative techniques some, let's say, more recent interventions, like this one, mental health interventions, which is through basically digital support. Health interventions is positive because may reach clients that would otherwise not have access to that kind of service or treatment due to internal factors like fear of stigmatization or external factors like infrastructures or barriers. Additional advantage, they're relatively short. There is also the possibility to automatize parts of the treatment. We can find an example of this, this is this SILA digital therapy platform that connects many immigrants and refugees with a network of therapists to address specific mental and psychological health needs. Then, in mental health interventions are usually also based on cognitive therapy, and they have been shown to be effective in reducing symptoms and common mental disorders, like post-traumatic stress and depression or phobia and some others. This is what has been confirmed by several studies. And potential challenges, let's say, of delivering such kind of interventions may include, of course, lack of trust in the neutrality of the website or application, and concerns about data storage and the privacy. And also, there could be the problem of the cost of using internet and mobile phones. Another kind of interventions is called scaling up with multiple component and related programs. It's developed basically that kind of psychological interventions for use in settings affected by negative experiences and adversity, where it's quite difficult to reach people. And this intervention is called Problem Management Plus, which is available as an individual version, and which has been evaluated until now in Pakistan and in Kenya, and then also as a group version, which has been evaluated in Pakistan and shows some positive effects, positive results. The basic characteristics of that kind of intervention is that they can be delivered also by non-professional helpers in a community or primary care settings, or by lay people, such as peer refugees, after a short-term training. Basically, there's a training of 10 days, followed then regularly, on the regular basis, bi-weekly group supervision by trained professionals. And clients, through these trainings, are taught several strategies for these problem management strategies, like stress management. An example could be breathing exercise. Then problem solving, like proactive management of practical difficulties and through a series of sequential steps, including selection of problems, brainstorming for solutions, and then also behavior activation, where they are stimulated to engage with pleasant and task-oriented activities. That could be like sport activities or any kind of other activities of their interest. Okay, told that when we talk about students, several interventions have been, or let's say innovative interventions, have been proposed also at the university level, and they are quite interesting, let's say. And I found not very long list of these interventions, but I think they could be quite easily applicable also in other contexts and universities and other countries. University of Göttingen has established an advisory service for refugees, students refugees, and also the formation of so-called guest student programs that involve also language courses and programs for refugees interested in studying, but also involve so-called service learning programs that besides this support for language acquisitions, has also refugee law clinic for legal advice and several student-managed activities for integration. So these activities are supported by other students. You can find more information also on this link. They involve students on volunteer base, and quite high number of students respond to that kind of call and interventions. And let's say results are quite encouraging and positive. What is prevented basically by this kind of support activities? One of the biggest problems of refugees, including students, is sense of isolation. So they feel not accepted, they are aware about discrimination within the society. Giving them any kind of sign that they could be accepted easily within the context is very positive and very encouraging for them. It is something like very deep within inside all human beings, the need for being accepted within the social context. That's the one of the first, let's say, need that could be easily supported also within the universities. Another context is University of Eastern Finland, and Finland is involving in providing assistance to asylum seekers, and this university also in recent years took part in various campaigns and events seeking to promote integration of asylum seekers, including the students. Last year, an event aimed at persons interested in volunteer has been held in each campus, and more than 15 people very interested. So they organized that kind of volunteering service also with the help and support of a few civic organizations in Finland. And expertise that is related to the university fields of study within the university, starting from the staff members and also students, give their support for language training, and also in relation to health science and social sciences. So anything that is related to, let's say, the difficulties maybe in learning, in studying, is provided, the support is provided through that kind of services. But besides this, the same university is running so-called learning spaces projects, which seeks to develop new kind of self-motivated motivated learning activities for asylum seekers and refugees, and which is carried out by the School of Education Sciences and Psychology. So other students under supervision develop new kinds of self-motivated learning activities to avoid a situation where refugees can feel isolated. A third university is in Norway, University of Oslo, which is based on organizing an information day for refugees every year. And that kind of information day is set up like a university conference. In parallel, they also launched a call for academic, I don't know how that's pronounced that. Is anybody speak Norway language? Ah, okay, thank you. So it's basically an attempt to facilitate the continuation of studies for refugees coming to Norway in any situation where they encounter difficulties on their, let's say, with their studies and exams, they can receive the support. And several measures have been implemented from lectures series to reviews of regulations and other aspects. This one, I think, for me is more important or more interesting because it involves more work with psychological aspects. It's proposed with this university, and initiative is called Refugee Help Refugees. The projects for the integration of refugee, this project has been also awarded in Berlin by the Federal Ministry of Education. Other refugees are very important, like a source of support and help, because they can help in orientation at the university, also in solving of different other difficulties and problems. And they can help also with some kind of, let's say, psychological support. Having common experiences could be, let's say, helpful in some conditions. This University of Applied Sciences offer also three kinds of initiatives. It is guest auditor program, where refugees who have already applied for asylum can take course for 1 semester for free. Then they have initiative of called Campus Without Borders, where students can volunteer to be tutors or mentors to the refugees who participate in that previous guest auditor program. And once tutors provide tutor or mentorship to one refugee and help that person through so-called labyrinth, basically through the to cope with the labyrinth of the university that could be quite difficult sometimes. especially at the beginning. And the third kind of initiative is called Tandem Project, and involves social and also some aspects of psychological work with refugees. Project involves students of social work, social sciences, and they receive training, initial training to deal with refugees. That could involve some awareness about traumatic experiences and kind of training also in systematic counseling, providing information on legal aspects and also on information on local networks that can support additionally the refugees. So they provide all kind of supporting initiatives through the semester where refugees are involved. Mentoring for refugee students is quite usual in several other universities, and they through the let's say mentoring projects is possible to provide cultural and linguistically diverse provides cultural and linguistically diverse youth to develop leadership and advocacy skills, and mentors could be, as I said, peers, but also, of course, staff members and other professionals, and also from the religious communities. So they work together to achieve a set of goals that the refugees has identified is important for his or her life. Okay. Say that basically I found also some other initiatives that could be used for psychological support to refugees. These initiatives we can sometimes could involve also mental health professionals, but not necessary. And through that activities, refugees and refugee students can receive different kind of psychological support. So there is possibility to provide or to promote to provide psychological support and to promote resilience also through cultural activities and through the arts, for example. We know that culture and arts are powerful tools for promoting openness, and they can help also sharing emotions and negative and positive emotions. And artistic expressions can be an important tool also in therapeutic settings, since it could promote some kind of self-esteem, self-awareness, facilitate also expressions of different emotions, as well as processing some of traumatic experiences. So creative and artistic tools offer the means for refugees to explore, express and reconstruct their emotions and experiences related to conflict, violence, and other their experiences. The selected examples are those that I found through internet searches, and this one is quite interesting, like Music Against Borders, which encourage people to donate musical instruments to refugees. But all of us knows probably many of other initiatives that involve music in promoting positive aspects of interaction with other cultures, and including also refugees. So other forms of cultural activities, theater, of course, where theater and performance arts could appeal to wide audience and also very powerful tool for storytelling. Theater group audience can be larger and also more diverse than traditional organizations, or let's say services for mental help and support. And potentially so they can reach members of the public who might be also unaware or apathetic to refugees and asylum seekers' problematics and issues. This Ice and Fire theater company in the UK explore human rights stories through performance across 4 work strands: production, outreach, education, and participation. And one of these performances, more recent performances, is Asylum Dialogues, where actors tell stories that show several acts of solidarity between British people towards refugees and asylum seekers. And a poll indicates basically that the performances encouraged audience members to become more actively involved after having participated in these theater performances in refugee issues. Museums could also have a very important role in connecting communities and in showing also stories about refugees. One of the recent initiatives by Victoria and Albert Museum was connected with offering visitors an opportunity to see collection from the perspective of refugees, which guided basically tours in the museum galleries, and it was quite interesting, basically involving the refugees in interpreting and in telling, connecting also their stories to what is exhibited in the museum. New media or social networks, use of the social networks in supporting refugees. There are not so many initiatives, but this group, called Crossing Channel Facebook group, is a channel for a public used to cross paths with everyday stories that people maybe don't have the opportunity to hear every day about refugees. And also other websites that promote artwork of displaced people, and that also give some support to the work of displaced artists, are very important in promoting their resilience and also stories about them. And we can't also neglect the role of the sport activities, which is widely used in supporting integration of refugee people, especially among young people, children and young people. Of course, sport has the power to overcome several cultural and maybe also ethnic differences, and to rally also a community and to create a sense of confidence and belonging. It's important also how to organize these kind of activities, who could be involved and in which way. I think it's very important also to create like mixed teams where is possible, and give, but anyway, any kind of activities, sport activities is, I think, helpful in promoting resilience, psychological resilience, but also is very important for the physical health of the people. It's important because give also opportunity to people to meet others. There are different kind of sporting activities that could be used. For male students, probably one of the most frequently used is football, no? Soccer teams. And there are, I think, different or large number of initiatives that are organized in, I think, several cities that already showed very positive effects of using sporting activities in promoting resilience, and also connecting to that, let's say, psychological support to refugee people and especially to students. Okay, thank you for your attention. Yes, of course.
So I actually have a background in social work, working with refugees and conducting trauma therapy. I always wonder, with so many different interventions, how does one choose? You know, there's so many we just went through, and I always wonder, is it based on the counselor background, or is it, you know, do you use more than one?
I think it could be choose like on what could be more reasonable for you, and what could be more easy also to involve other people, and what is available maybe in the context already. So what kind of resonance you find, like with activities, what is more familiar for you? Maybe that could be one of the criteria for selecting activities. But I think what I found could give like valuable support, any of these activities. So whatever you choose, I think you can have some positive effects.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, please.
On the other hand, most of us are not psychological therapists.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we actually recognize trauma in in the people that we help? We don't have any training. I speak for myself, but I don't have any training in psychology or psychotherapy. So how?
I think it would be very important to have some connections also with other professionals. So it's very important to have teams. And maybe where there is some suspect that people could have problems because they may manifest that kind of suffering in some way, or feeling isolated, not easily integrated. They have problems in studying when we talk about the students. So maybe if they don't open themselves, they don't want to tell anything. Maybe we can try to talk with somebody who could be involved and find a way to approach them if we don't feel like confident to approach people and to touch these weak points. Of course, it could be very, very dangerous also sometimes to enter like very deeply, and there is of course need to professional support. And so I think that the best way is to ask other professionals if there is any possibility to involve them.
Maybe a comment to that. If we do that, isn't that a problem of distrust for the person who we are talking about? I mean, if I go to a professional and we have student counseling in our university, if I talk to the counselors there and recommend them to talk to the person who is in need.
It's a very sensitive issue. So,
Because the person
yeah.
who I think is in need of help.
Yeah, it's a very sensitive issue, and we have to find strategies how to do that, in how to approach. Yeah. So I think every person is an individual case. So you can evaluate, because if you interact with that person, you can already know something about him, and you can also evaluate what kind of approach could be more suitable for that person. How can be what kind of strategies and ways could be used to suggest that person to talk about what is his or her experiences and trauma, and also in introducing, let's say, him or her to professionals.
I would add to that, if for someone who isn't a professional, I think there's always, as you mentioned, but there's always some challenge in having somebody share their story and re-traumatizing themselves if they're not in the right safe environment. But I would say for someone on the front line, since trauma is so common, is normalizing their experience. And by that I mean imparting to them that it's very common, you know, making it less, so they feel less isolated. I think that's a good first step.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah. I think my colleagues also can tell something more about that, because they have much more experience than me in real therapeutic settings and approach and work with refugees. Is there any question? Yeah?
Sorry, can we use the microphone, please? Thank you. I just want to build on what the last speaker said. I think that, you know, if some kind of psychological problem starts to manifest itself, then they're really in a very critical phase. But I think that a lot of psychological problems are silent suffering, and that, you know, and probably the silent suffering is probably a normal experience for someone who's gone through what they've gone through, but also for people who haven't gone through refuge. So, I mean, we see our societies, we have a lot of problems with depression and suicides, you know, even among youth. So, of course, with refugees, I think that that could be also a problem. So maybe it would be important, you know, when, especially if you have an office, to already, instead of saying, maybe you need this, but to offer documentation or brochures that already suggest, this could be a normal phenomena. These are the organizations or the sporting groups or the theater groups or the music groups you can get in touch with.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think that should be already like
Yeah.
a first line communication. Just saying this is normal, if you're needing help, this is a hotline, this is this, and that they already have that information on hand, and then they can go decide what
Yeah.
they need or what they enjoy.
Yeah.
Not everyone is a football player, not everyone is a musician, that there are different
Yeah,
opportunities.
thank you very much. Yeah, that's the point also. It's important to give information on networking opportunities. What is available to refugees within a place. So they can choose and they can search, maybe support through that. Yeah, please.
Thank you. I want to stress the point that in our program and also in the refugee accommodation where we've been working, there have been 400 people, and in the program there have been a lot of people too. People really want to talk. I never made the experience that people don't want to talk if they have some kind of burden, to be honest. I'm a social worker as profession, and I really want to stress that loads of people, they have a problem with their family if they left the family in the country. That's always a reason that is really hard for them, and it's good to know what the situation is in the different countries. And racism is a big issue, not recognizing what you did in your life before you came to the host country. That is issues, or even violence. We have some women in the program. The men came afterwards, and then they'd been in-house violence. So that is issues that we really need to be aware of, and it's not always the trauma from war, because that's something that they overcome. We had a really bad situation in Berlin that was so hostile against refugees in the Lageso camps. The people have been trapped in organizations, in shelters. That was awful, seriously. It was good that we had some kind of accommodation, but that was really traumatizing for people coming to a country that is so-called democratic and human rights based and then being treated like that. That is something that is manifested really deeply, and it's good to have an environment created in the beginning of programs where you're able to start talking about that as well. Not just about the bad situation in the country. I mean, everyone knows that it's bad. That's really, really important.
Yeah, that's importance, of course, of the experiences in the host country as well, not only of the past traumas and experiences. Yeah.
Okay. That was my first barrier. I agree with the previous speaker. It's not only about the traumatic experience of getting here, but also how they are treated. And I'm not a therapist, and I don't present myself as I'm just a listener. And I feel that opening the space, the conversational space, where they can share their feelings of how they are treated. I give a very short anecdote, if that's okay. A young guy said, I was asked if I had a light for a cigarette, and I said no, and all at once in his communication, the one who asked him realized that he was a foreigner, and he started shouting abuse at him, like, oh, you're having this backpack, and is there a bomb, and it was in the middle of Ghent, which is a very lovely and liberal city in Belgium. And so he was so shocked about his experience, but he only told this, let's say, we were having dinner, so after 3-4 hours, when he felt and he really wanted to share that story. So I think we also could create some platforms, some storytelling platforms where they can share this, and because this was really something that he wanted to, and he wanted to have it published. So I also think this kind of, it's not a deeply traumatizing, but it's something they want to share. But I'm not an expert, I'm just a listener.
Oh,
Most
thank
of
you
the
for
time I
sharing.
prefer to listen and to talk, to be honest. But I think it's very important to create this conversational space. And that's,
Yeah.
so that was...
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, please. But all questions for me? Or could we involve also my...
Vogliamo fare 5 minutes of coffee break, then we can follow with this debate and last question, I think, no?
Yeah,
And then we can start again.
yeah, please. No.
There is a psychological counseling center,
Okay.
and it's open for all students,
Uh-huh.
because as you just said, anyone can have psychological problems,
Okay.
and they actually address students with psychopathology risk to structures in the territory working with that kind of target, and refugees, of course. So there is a kind of a system. I think one problem is information. They need to know that there is this.
Yeah, that's very often that's the problem, that people don't have informations. So
The other thing I think is it functions also, especially university, is to promote prevention activities and proactive. I mean, this kind of counseling centers, they should do activities, promote activities to integrate refugee students into the community of the university also, because they share problems with foreign students as at acculturation level, right? So I think we will hear about that in a little bit. So that's
okay, thank you very much. Okay. Bye. So.
We have such a center too, but I find it difficult in some cases to bring the people there. Like, what do you do if they resist
Okay.
counseling or mediation or some of these offers that we actually have? So what do you do then? I mean, you recognize the problem. You know there is someone with stress or even paranoia. We had a case of real paranoia, in my opinion, and but the offers weren't accepted. So that's
Yeah, as I said, there could be some barriers to access to psychological support and counseling, connected very often also to their perception of that kind of support. That I think also in Western countries there are several negative stereotypes towards psychologists and psychotherapy. So you can also imagine that could be the same or similar stereotypes also for other cultures, and they, as I said, can have different interpretations about mental health problems, and also different approach to mental health problems. So I think the Western countries should find the approach that could in some way be ethno-oriented, in a way that people could feel like more accepted and more confident also with the psychotherapist. And
my name is David Schneider. I'm coordinator for the refugee program at the Technical University of Munich. And this last question, what worked in a lot of cases in our program was using a kind of a door opener, so to speak. We told the refugees that there is counseling, And sometimes if they were reluctant, we said, we know that you have problems with sleeping and problems to concentrate. And that sounded less threatening than psychological counseling. And that's like maybe a first step to start a discussion with the counselor. If you know that someone has sleeping problems or problems to concentrate, which will follow if you have a post-traumatic stress disease, then this could be a first step, and tell refugees that you could meet a counselor and talk to them about your sleeping and your concentration problems. That work at our program in a lot of cases.
Okay, thank you very much, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Hello, good morning. Good morning, buongiorno, kalimera. I'm Margarita from Greece. And I hope I would say also other good mornings in other languages, but I don't know any other. So I'm here to talk to you about practices from Greece. I'm a psychologist and I work in a service called Day Center Babel. So I will talk to you a little bit of who we are, what Babel is, and how we work with refugees. And I would like to focus on some cases that we are working therapeutically. And hopefully we could begin a conversation in terms of how you can apply this to education, if we can, because we are a mental health service. So Babel belongs to Synirmos. Synirmos is an NGO which was founded in 2005 in Greece, and it's active in the fields of social solidarity, social economy, welfare, and well-being of adults and children. So Day Center Babel belongs to Synirmos. So Babel is a public mental health unit which is supervised and financed by the Greek Ministry of Health. And its goal is to provide mental health services for migrants and refugees and asylum seekers that reside in Athens. That means we have a big population, not only refugees that are newcomers, but also other people that are migrants and live in Athens and in Attica for many years. We are situated in the center of Athens, in an area called Kypseli, which is very central. And a lot of refugees and their families reside in that area. And we are the sole mental health unit that was created and is also public from the state. There are other NGOs in the field that work with refugees, but they are newer than us. We operate from 2007. And until now, we have served from more than 5,000 people, and we're trying to assist them psychosocially as well as with problems that they face with mental health. Our clients come from many countries. We have a big representation of Afghanistan, Syria, Iran, but also African countries and Balkan countries as well. And the way we operate, we use an interdisciplinary team model. The core Babel team, as I say the core, I mean the permanent staff, we are 13 of us with different disciplines, and we operate with a community model. We have psychologists in the team, psychiatrists, social worker, nurse, health visitor, and interpreters. And what we're trying to do is we try to offer services to both adults and children, and we're trying to be culturally sensitive and competent. To achieve that, what we're trying to do is we try to have in-training programs, and we are liaising constantly with other NGOs that offer mental health services, and we network as well with them. We also offer training and clinical supervision to other NGOs in the field, since we are running for many years and people trust our expertise. And what we also do is we try with private funding to implement other programs that are not funded by the state. For the time being, we operate a program for the victims of torture and another program that provides mental health services to children and families in the sites in Attica, in the Attica region. And also another program that provides special therapy for children, like speech and language therapy and occupational therapy, to children that have disorders and belong to the autistic spectrum. All services that we provide are free of charge. We aim to abide to confidentiality principles, but because we operate and we liaise with other networks, we have an agreement among services that we can share information for the benefit of the beneficiaries. And this is what we follow with when the referrals are coming from the organizations. And what we do also employ is we employ interpreters. We have interpreters for Arabic and Farsi and French. Most of us speak both English and French, so we can conduct therapy in other languages as well. But for languages such as Farsi and Arabic and other dialects, we use trained interpreters. We train our own interpreters to provide mental health services. And this is a training that we provide to each interpreter that comes in our service, even if they have training, because we feel that when an interpreter is part of the therapeutic team, in a sense, and it's very different to provide, to do psychotherapy with an interpreter and for the interpreter to help in a psychotherapy setting. Okay. We deliver various interventions to refugees. Apart from specialized assessments, we do counseling and psychotherapy, we do psychiatric assessment and medication follow-up, special therapies, as I said, psychosocial support. We also try to do community interventions. For instance, we have partnerships with several schools in the area, and we also visit shelters and sites. So if someone has, let's say, let's say someone has a request for us to go in and work with them, we accept that request and we work with them towards whatever topic they have in mind if they have a refugee population. For instance, for the time being, we offer support to to teachers in 2 secondary schools in Athens, and we do that with monthly visit, and we do experiential groups with the teaching staff. As I said before, we do provide training and supervision, staff care and support to other services if they wish to. And what we're trying is to formulate individualized care plans for the people that we see. What it means to us is that each person is unique, and we have to have a unique approach when we connect with their story. This is very difficult for the time being because we have an influx of new referrals. Because as you already said in your comments, professionals are in a big difficulty in whatever field they work with the refugee population. What I mean is they're often exposed to complexities that they're not prepared for, even if it's education, even if it's a shelter, even if it's a site, and sometimes people are left helpless. Not only the refugee, but people that work with the population are left helpless and without support. And what we're trying to do is actually work with them through that. We have many calls during the days, and usually what the call is about is not the person that they want us to see, but it's about the professional, not being able to work with the person. Because sometimes the beneficiary, as you all said, may not want to go to counseling. We will see why. We will see why some people don't want to go to therapy, even if there may be a good thing for them, or we may think it's a good thing for them. They may not think so. So all of these are things that we are faced with. We often hear people over the phone, they're very upset, and they say, okay, he has come in the shelter, he has broken down everything, and what do I do with him? He's 17, he's absconding, he goes out. What can I do with him? Take him, medicalize him, fix him, he's traumatized, and all this. So that's what we are trying to work with the professionals, and we also try to see the people that they are referred to us. Some of them want to be referred to us, some of them may not want to be referred to us. For us, it's very important for the person to want to come to our service. Okay, if there is no, let's say, desire for him or she to come, we won't be able to provide the service to the beneficiary. However, we could work with the people around the beneficiary that face the issues. And for us to do that, it's very important to network with the other services. So a lot of our work is also networking. We coordinate also an MHPSS network in Athens, and through this we are trying to advocate for the rights of refugees and put pressure to the Ministry of Health alongside other NGOs and organizations. So this is what we do. Okay. How do we accept referrals? Referrals can come from other services, as I've already told you, but the beneficiary can also come to our door, either in person or by calling or by email. So we will accept a referral. Someone does not have to mediate so that we can get the referral. So sometimes people appear in our door and they may know what they're coming for. Sometimes other people may have sent them because they don't understand them. So we have a lot of referrals from that. And before any action is taken, we try to see which network the person has. Is he alone? Has he been in any other services? Who is there for him? So that we can build a network of support. Because the worst thing is for someone to be alone. So what we try to create is to create a network for the person so that they can hold on. And our rule is each person is unique, each case is addressed uniquely. We try to, we put a lot of effort into this, not for our people to be treated as cattle, as, numbers. Because there is a pressure from some of the programs that we are funded by, to see numbers. They say, okay, do groups of 400. I want you to reach 400. Yes, but what will I do with 400 people? If you visit a site in Skaramagas, for instance, in Athens, there is, how many people, 700 or 2,000 people living in the small cubicles. Only a minimum of them visit services on site because the population there is very much afraid. So is it the right approach to have groups in Skaramagas if no one is trusting professionals there or if the population is showing? So we try to work in each situation with a unique perspective because not everyone is the same. Now, some of you said, what if someone does not go to counseling or psychotherapy? I think first we need to think about, and I think you already know that, but I will say it anyway, that sometimes mental health brings a stigma. And we need to also think, what is the mental health service in the country? How is the mental health system working there? And, when I first started working with this population, what shocked me was a picture that my boss showed me when she was training me to enter Babel. And it was one like this. This is an asylum in Afghanistan. So if in Afghanistan there are asylums like this, so if someone that lives there, when they speak about mental health or a psychiatrist, they think this is what I'm going to end up like. Mental health for him is a big stigma, and this is not the right way to put it through. So we need to bear in mind what other people think, what mental health is. As a psychologist, what do I do? You know, what does a doctor do? Okay. Usually when there is a doctor involved, people are very much, let's say, obliging and you know, they think that the doctor will give them solution. And sometimes people from some cultures, like from Iran or Afghanistan, they come and say, okay, tell me, I haven't slept. I don't have my house, you know, we live with other 15 people in, I cannot bear them, I get angry, tell me what to do. And that is not a mental health problem. You know, when sometimes people are in difficult situations and they become angry because they are not living as a human being, this is not a mental health problem if they get angry. Why I say this is because many services call us over the phone and say, okay, he became angry. Yes, because he waited 3 hours in the service and no one told him that he had to wait, and this is how it is. So he got angry. It doesn't mean that he has a mental health issue. Even if I arrive here in Rome and I lose my stuff and I'm in the airport and I am there for 4 hours, believe me, I would be very angry because I have never been here before. Okay, so I think we need first to have an open mind in terms of what it is mental health in many cultures. For instance, this is also another picture in Afghanistan. Oops, sorry. And this is a picture from Syria. So I think first we need to think about where is this person from and what does he think he will get. So one part of what we do when we meet people is we say who we are and what we can do. And sometimes people will say, yes, okay, I will come and talk. Sometimes they will say, no, thank you. I don't want to come and talk because I want to come to you to get a paper to say that I'm vulnerable so that I can get my papers. That's another big issue. Where they are in their social, with their social support. In Greece, we have a big problem with the social support network. I have to say to you, people wait to get their papers, to get registered 6 months for the pre-registration phase and another 6 possibly to get registered to get the card. So these people are in limbo. And I'm not proud to say that for the Greek government, but this is the case. And sometimes they get the asylum months after that. If they are Syrians, they get it rather quickly. If they are Afghanis or from Iran, they have to wait. I have colleagues in the service that have been in Babel from 2007, and they just got their papers. And these people are living in Greece, they speak Greek very well, they have a job, okay, and that is very difficult for them. And why I'm saying this example is because one colleague of ours is an interpreter, and she has entered the university just now to be a social worker. And she has passed her tests, she has passed her, you know, she has the Greek language certificate that she can speak. She is in the university. She has so much trouble understanding the courses, not because she speaks very well. She speaks English very well as well. She cannot study the material. It's very hard for her. The language is very complicated. And there is no help in the university for her. There is help in terms of entering the university, but there is no way helping her to pass the theoretical components. The practical components she will do well, because she will be in the theoretical components, she has given them twice, and she cannot pass them. I'm just saying this to you because Fariba, my colleague, she has been through a lot, but she's very well under the, let's say, under her life at the moment. Both her and her husband have work. Their child goes to public school. She doesn't have so much financial trouble, and still she has trouble being in the university, and she has question marks if she will be able to finish and be a social worker, and if it's worth it. So I think keep that. I think the dilemma is not who enters, is also how to sustain them in the university. And I'm not talking about people that have problems, mental health issues, trauma. I'm talking about people that have daily life struggles, and it's very difficult to keep up to a university level. So that's one. I have strayed away from my presentation, but I just wanted to say this to you because it's very real and it's something that we talk about at work. I also want to say a little bit about trauma because we've heard the word trauma and a lot of PTSD is talking about in services and everything. And okay, we talk about PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, okay? What post? Some people are still in the phase. We cannot talk about post. Okay, and I'll talk to you later about a lady that I'm seeing for 4 years, Soraya. She's 35, and she has a diagnosis of PTSD, but she still struggles with everyday life. So what post? We've given her the diagnosis, but she still has troubles. Not because of her past, but because of how she's dealing now with things now. So there are many theories about trauma. Psychologists like the trauma theories, but I would like to focus on the approach that Dr. Enos Papadopoulos from Essex University is focusing on. I'm saying that because we work closely with Dr. Papadopoulos. He is supervising the Babel team for many years, and he has trained us a lot on his model, and this is something that we have closely at heart. Of course, there are other models, but I would like to talk to you about that. In Greek, trauma means injury or wound, okay? And the root verb is tiro, which is to rub in or to rub off or rub away. Rubbing in, when we rub something in, we create an injury. But when we rub something off, we are, let's say, we are making it disappear. So trauma has these two meanings. So we cannot, the second meaning, to make something disappear, is less noticeable, but keep this in mind, because having an intense experience does not always result in an injury. It may result into something else as well, and that is what Dr. Papadopoulos' theory says. There is a range of possible effects. There may be negative effects, positive effects, and neutral effects from trauma. Okay, and its possibility is not exclusive, and someone may be traumatized, but also he or she may gain from the experience and learn from that. So don't think only about vulnerability, but also think about resilience. When a refugee has come to university or to your service, it's not vulnerability that you need to be looking at. You need also to be looking at resilience. When people come to me, they have survived. And that is a huge way of thinking about things. Yes, okay, they have had difficult experiences. And it's difficult for us to hear them sometimes because they are very extreme. We are not used to people get bombed at or people getting killed, okay, or to hear about those things because we don't have those pictures in our eyes. Okay, but it's important not also to think about vulnerability, but also into their strengths and resilience. I have some, so what I want to say is that not all refugees are traumatized. Okay, there is a portion of them that are traumatized and that they require mental health services, but not all of them have mental health problems. Not all of them have mental health problems. Just bear in mind that. Yes, they may be ordinary human suffering, as we say, if you had lost someone very dearest to you has died. Yes, there may be ordinary human suffering there, or if someone has lost their keys or lost anything. So some responses are very normal. Anger, being sad, yes, it's a normal response. If someone died, it's very normal for them to be sad. It's very normal to be in shock. It's not something not normal to that. Yes, there may be a psychiatric disorder there. There may be severe symptoms. Then we can talk about that. But not all of them are there. And yes, we have distressful psychological reactions, which is more severe reactions, but still, they do not always require specialist attention. A colleague of mine went to another service because one of our beneficiaries was irate. And when he went there, he just spoke to him in a very low voice and, well, what's going on, you know, what is happening? And the person calmed down. And he was very distressed because he was up in the end of his tether of things. And something was written to him very distressed, but he didn't have to enter a session so that he can, or we didn't have to call the police or get him to the psychiatric hospital because he was irate. We had people that were not well. Usually with the psychiatric disorders, if someone is psychotic, yes, of course he will need psychiatric service right away, but not all of them are like this. There is a minimum amount of cases. Now, some people from Greece, colleagues of mine, might say in the islands, okay, they're cutting themselves, all of them are cutting themselves. They're making attempts. This is serious. Yes. In what context, I would say, are they making the attempts? Because we have a lot of unaccompanied minors doing that. Sometimes an attempt is a cry for help. It's not always a mental health issue. If you put them, I invite you to come to Lesbos, and if you stay there for 3 days in the camp, all of you will become vulnerable. All of you will become vulnerable. So what they do is they cut themselves because that's the only way that they will give them a paper to go to the mainland, to go to Athens. So are they going to do that? Yes, they are going to do that. So yes, we have a lot of people coming in and saying, okay, can you give me a certificate to get my papers more quickly? We do that. Okay, we assess them. If there is nothing wrong, of course we will say there is nothing wrong. But we do that. We get that out of the way. And this is a policy that we've got. Yes, sometimes we get very angry because we say, okay, that's entering in the phase of our work. We cannot work psychotherapeutically if they ask for papers and everything. But we do that because we want to get it out of the way. If this is a request, then we can work, after we put that on the side, we can work with the person. Okay. Yes, and the core things. The positive effects of trauma. Dr. Papadopoulos is talking about the term adversity activated development. He says that individuals may have positive developments as a result of adversity. Sometimes people, refugees, may find something that is very positive in them after they have moved on from this experience. And sometimes they can, let's say, find something new in them that has resonated from their experience, which is a positive attribute that did not exist before. Adversity-activated development. And it's different from resilience, because resilience, we talk about qualities that existed before. Okay, I had this before, these were my assets. Adversity-activated development is a new characteristic that I gained. So this can be part of the life of refugees. And we have seen people in that. I think it's also Dr. Papadopoulos has made the trauma grid that people can work on, therapists can use in terms of where to see the adverse activated development, the resilience, and all the other negative effects that I told you about. Okay. But I would like to talk more about how people come to us. And if I have time, I will talk to you about one case. Okay. This is how people come to us. They come for many reasons. When children are referred to us, usually they're referred either by their parents or the school or someone else involved is very, let's say, worried about. This is a picture of a 7-year-old boy from Syria. And this is, in our first session, he drew that picture and he never drew one again. With this picture, he wanted to show me exactly what is happening. I don't know if you can see the house that is in the center of the picture. Housing was a big issue about them, where their home would be. Okay, that figure over there with the house on the top of the head, it's their mother. Their mother was very much trying. He said to me, "That's my mom," and his mother was very much trying to make Greece a home for him. Because his mom has taken all this responsibility, he is the one holding the ball. He is the one playing with all his other siblings over there. He's going to school, but the responsibility is his mother's. He has the responsibility to make a house for them, but also to cross to go to Sweden, where his other sister is, and his other sister is trying to get them from Sweden to reunite with her. So she's getting all the burden and all the snow and everything. And there is no father, because the father has left them. He's here in the picture. And because he has left them, he thinks that all his problems are coming from that, because the father has left them. So this is exactly, this little boy has drew me his life story in one picture in the first session. And this is what we get when someone comes in. And this is a boy that goes to school, that has some issues with school. He's going normally to school in Greece. Now they have left, they have gone to Sweden, but he was attending school. He was going to school. I think this is very important, because if we are going to talk about how you can support them in education, I think perhaps you need to think about how people enter education and in which part of their lives enter education. This mother valued education very much and wanted the boys to go, even if they went to Sweden afterwards. I think that would be very good for them. I have good feelings that they would continue with schooling in Sweden. Okay. And I thought that would be interesting for you to know. How is someone starting their educational journey? And this family, even though they have been through pillars and posts, because they went to Turkey first, and then they came to Athens, the mother tried and entered them into the school, even though they went for 2 years. That is a grounding experience. This boy spoke little Greek with me, okay, because he spoke Kurdish, so we didn't have an interpreter at the time. So we spoke in Greek, and we could communicate in Greek. His Greek were quite good for the time that he has been in Athens, and I think it's very interesting to show that. This is a lucky story, in a sense, a good story. This is not a good one. This is another boy of 5. And this is the first picture that he drew. He was in Greece for about 4 years. Now I think they have gone abroad. They have left suddenly. That's another sad story, that refugees in mental health services, they go suddenly because they don't wish to stay to Greece. They have another dream to go to Germany, perhaps, or in a northern country in Europe. So when you are in that limbo state, it's very hard to enter things that ground you. Like this boy never went to the school system. This family, his mother was very traumatized by all of what he has seen, and this boy also was bearing his mother's, let's say, distress. So he never went to school while he was in our care. And this is a girl that is with us for many years, and she has stayed in Athens, and you can see this is a very different approach. She goes to school, she's a very good student, she speaks the language well, and because her, let's say, worry now is for her to be very good and for her, and she strives for her mother's approval, and her mother is very strict, so she doesn't give her much approval. So in one of our sessions, she took all of my stickers that were saying good and nice job, even though I have other princesses and stuff, because I work with children, I have many stickers and things. But she wanted to fill in the picture with all of these little stickers that said nice job and what a good girl you are and how good you are doing. And she's obviously in the phase where she's trying to be like her mother, she's trying to be very good, and one part of being good is being good at school. And she's doing rather well, so I think she will move on to go to the whole sequence of her schooling. So these are children, but I will also talk to you about, I have time, Okay, I have 5 minutes. I'll talk to you about an example of a woman that I'm seeing 4 years now, Soraya. Soraya has been, Soraya, when she came 4 years ago, she came as a victim of trafficking. She didn't say that at first. She never said that. She came because her family was threatening her life, so that's how she got her asylum. She has been abused from the age of 4, sexually abused. She also has been abused in her marriage, where she was married at the age of 13. And this is what her lawyer said to me when she called me and said, okay, Soraya needs to come and see you. Because she cannot pass her interview. She has collapsed twice. And she passed her interview after all. When she came in, yes, of course, she was very frightened. But I was scared when I heard those things from her lawyer. I was very much scared to say, what will I see now? And it was one of the cases that stayed with me. And it was sudden to me that she was not at all like I was expected her to be. Very beautiful woman, without a headscarf, elegant. You know, she had. She didn't seem to be traumatized. And I say that because sometimes the perspectives and the stereotypes we hold, gets into our job, and it's not good. And Soraya, despite her history, and I'm saying that because later on, I think after 2.5 years, she told me that she was also a traffic victim, a victim of trafficking and a sex slave. She has managed to hold the relationship, to find a house to stay with her new partner, to enter university, okay, and to be in a program. And yes, in the program, she really struggled in the program because she couldn't remember. She tried to learn the Greek language, she left it. And she was saying to me, why can I study? Why can I not remember? And this because, yes, she had PTSD symptoms. Obviously, her mind froze. So it took a long time for her to understand that the way she's learning, it's not the way she used to learn when she was back home. And that she needed time. And currently, she can understand Greek, but she cannot speak it. Okay, and that did not stop her. She's a very determined woman, even though she had headaches, she had psychosomatic symptoms, she had vomits, she had all of the things that related to her trauma. She managed to finish the course, not the university, but the language program, so that she could enter the university at some point. What her strugglings were when she got stressed, she had the somatic symptoms and she was missing classes. So I got a phone call from the university because she gave the service phone number to and with her approval, I spoke to the person in charge and said, look, if she's not coming, it's because she does not feel very well, and this is honest. It's not that she's absconding or anything. You need to give her a chance. And I said, look, I don't mind. I just need the paper because I need to justify her card to come in and out. So many things could help her in that. People like that could be helped if there is an understanding of if there is a way to help them be sustained in education. Another thing she had, and I don't know if this is an issue, but because she had other people from Iran with her, because she did not wear a headscarf, the men were going near her and they were trying to make friends with her. Because a woman with no headscarf from her Iranian background is an easy prey for men. So that was a struggle, even though there was, let's say, a mutual respect in classroom, even though everyone was well, because she was a very attractive woman, and because she had her background, she had many difficulties with that. And one of her struggles was how to communicate that to the teachers, to her professors, so that they can assist her in a way that she's not stigmatized, that she's not, that also she is respected, and that there is a subtle way in doing this. Finished?
Yeah,
Huh?
thank you.
Okay, that's it.
First, thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate that, we've been speaking all week, refugee, but this really humanizes people's experience, and people are not just a member of a group, they're human individuals with their own stories. And I also think it was very important, this idea that trauma doesn't always have negative effects. And in fact, I think people, and I think it's important to draw out both, people can experience both negative effects and positive and neutral at the same time. And to help people see also not only the bad side, very important.
Any other question? Okay. If there are no questions, we can have a third presentation. Natale Rossi. Non mi ricordo quali erano, questo e questo?
Ma dopo.
Ok.
Okay. Good morning, and I would like to thank Professor Kosic and their colleagues for this invitation. And unfortunately, I had to set up my mind this morning because I misunderstood the context. I was thinking to speak to a group of students of La Sapienza and other colleagues, always students from other countries. So I was thinking to speak in Italian, and so I brought with me some slides that I will use later in Italian, so I have to translate this in English. And I would talk in a more informal way, also to avoid that instead of looking to me, you look to your screen in front of you. And I think this is an element that can be associated also to our practice of relationship with refugees, in the sense that speaking with refugees, sometimes we are thinking, unconsciously probably, to speak with someone that is like us. We use a lot of concepts coming from our culture. We use a lot of categories that could be, probably, maybe not, useful to work in the Western world, that we have to remember always that is composed by a very little minority of people if we compare it with the number of people living in the world. But in the same time, we, most of you probably, belong to organizations that are based on a Western way of thinking, a Western way of organizing the work that somehow implied the need to find a lot of victims around of them, a lot of trauma, in order to give us the possibility to be the rescuer. And now I would like to share with you a number of personal experience I did in this field. I've been working for 15 years with IOM, the International Organization for Migration, where I set up the Psychosocial and Cultural Integration Unit. I was the director of the Mental Health and Psychosocial Issues Department in IOM. And at a certain point, I decided to resign because within the organization there is always a great tendency to use the words, the categories, the concepts that are useful for the organization itself. If we speak about trauma, we get a lot of money. If we speak about psychosocial and mental health program against trauma, and we are able to write following the guidelines, we will probably get money. So we have the possibility to continue in our job. So our position is not a neutral position. Our position is a position that is in relationship with the other, and it is in relationship with the people that we used to call traumatized people. And then there is another step. If they are traumatized, thinking in a linear way, they will be probably affected by PTSD. And there is a very interesting book that was written by an anthropologist from Quebec, in Canada. No, he's not from Quebec. He is Canadian, but he works in the Quebec University in Montreal. His name is Alan Young. And he wrote a book that is very explanatory in itself with the title, that is The Harmony of Illusion, Inventing Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. So this is not something that gives you the possibility to continue to work if this kind of thought, this kind of books were not written, this kind of experience were not shared. So we have to think about this. What I decided was to resign from an organization where the power of the administration were much more stronger than the professional point of view. And I decided to fund a school of psychotherapy in Rome that is called Ethno-Systemic Narrative, without problem with administration, because it is mine. It is recognized by the state, so it can survive only because there are students that are psychologists or medical doctors that pay their fees for 4 years to become ethno-systemic narrative psychotherapist. So this is the choice that I did, and it means that the experience about which I would like to speak with you is related to this last part of my life. Since 2009 until now, through the school that has mainly a training part to give the tools for psychotherapy to new psychotherapists, but it has also a clinical setting where we receive mainly immigrants or asylum seekers and refugees. But it is not an open access in the sense that it is always mainly dedicated to the training of our students that are working with these refugees under our supervision, and in general, the asylum seekers coming in our place are coming through the association that are working with them for their integration. And in general, not in general, but I mean at least 80% of them are coming to us as a second or third level of choice, in the sense that what is mainly happening if someone of them is presenting a behavior that the operator, the social workers are feeling as strange or problematic, and they don't know how to manage it, in general, they send them to the psychiatric emergency. The psychiatric emergency gives them pills. They become more or less like zombies for few days or few weeks, or even more. And the social worker then realizes that they have to find something else. And sometimes they come to our clinic. And so one of the main tasks that we have is to avoid for them to continue to be in contact with the psychiatric service. Also because we don't believe in this definition, this diagnostic definition, not only of PTSD, but also of dissociation, schizophrenia, and all the DSM list of diagnostics. But how do we substitute this frame that is very, how could I say, is very protective for the psychologist and for the operator in general? Very easy, no? That is a borderline. That one is probably schizophrenic, and that one is blah, 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 blah. So we substitute this way of thinking that put us in a position of power, the power of giving definition. Our colleague Margherita was talking about, before was talking about stigma, about the stigma that is strong and has specific kind of shape in their countries, but is still existing here. Is still existing here, in other way, in other forms. And so we have, for this is one of the reasons for which we try to keep them out from the psychiatric service. Because the psychiatric service are stigmatizing. So how do we substitute this practice with another way to enter in contact with our clients? We believe that all the narratives that are brought to us by a person that wants to speak about its experience refugee or not, are always related to what we call four axes. The first one is the one that is related to the relationship between different generations. It means between children, parents, grandparents, sometimes grandparents. And we talk with them about this. Maybe the issue for which they are presenting some kind of strange behavior or anyway suffering is related to a point that is linking them with the axe of generations. A second axe is that one of gender. In other terms, is related to how women and men are interacting in a specific culture, and if it is the same or it is different with the culture where they arrive at. The third axe is the one that put in relationship humble and powerful. What does it mean? It means that working on this issue, we have the possibility to tell them that we are not part of this system of refugee integration, that they don't understand, and that often is part of their trauma. But we are out of this. we are with the amber. Do you know what is the meaning of amber? In Italian is umili. I don't know, in French is amber, je crois. In English is amber. Yes, means the people without power, the people that has a position within the society that is down. Okay? And then there is a fourth axe that is very, very, very important in working with the refugees and migrants. That is the axe that put in relation the visible world with the invisible world. And a specification of this axe is the one that put in relationship the world of the people alive with the world of the dead people. In many, many, many cases, the problem presented by the people that is coming in our clinic is related to this axe and to the fact that there is something happening in their country that is related to the invisible world. Often is related to the world of death. There are some nightmare, for example, nightmare of asylum seeker. The operator, the social worker are coming to us asking, could you please see this person? He is unable to sleep since 1 month. Every day he has or she has nightmare. And he wake up, he cannot continue to sleep, and he is going very, very, very bad. Also, he has fear, is terrorized, or he has problem of aggressivity with the other colleagues in the same bedroom, etc. And it is related 99% of time with problem with the world of the dead that are coming. You know that in every culture there are rituals to guarantee us a distinction, a respect, but a distinction between the world of the alive and the world of the dead. In Greece, you are very connected with this, I know, no? Because I live in Greece 6 months a year, and the ritual, the funerary ritual, are very important, very strong, are very structured. But this happens in all the culture, even if through the modernity we forget this. But it means that for refugees, for example, it's not possible to participate to this ritual. It's not possible to participate to the funeral of relatives, of parents, sometime of children. So we have the necessity to co-construct with them a possibility of new ritual to give them the possibility to stay in peace with the world of the dead. And this has give us the possibility to think about some alternative way to understand the suffering of these people. And one of the key issues that we use is that their symptoms are text without context. So we have to rebuild the context in order to give the symptoms the possibility to leave them. And well, so I took some point in our there's another point that I believe is very important to share with you, is that related to how the mind of migrants is constructed. The mind of migrant is not constructed as the mind of someone who never migrate. Because I believe there is a sort of dominant narrative that has political meaning. That is that when a migrant is arrived to the new land, to the new country, then it's finished. The story is finished. They are happy. They are arrived in a sort of superior society, superior culture. And the only problem that we have is to give them the support to be integrated. That is a meaning that often mean assimilated, no? Become like us. So their story is completely deleted. But they have a story. And the construction of the mind of the migrant, in our experience, is the construction of someone. You should imagine someone that every day when he wakes up is thinking how to stay in the new country, and in the same time, it seems a contradiction, but it is not. In the same time, how to go back in the country. And a lot of problems that we see are related, for example, to the fact that within the family, there are different plans, different perspectives. Parents want to go back, for example, when it is possible. But children they want to stay, because the process of integration for them is much stronger. They go to the school, they speak the language, they have a lot of friends, etc. They prefer, they even sometimes don't remember their roots. Maybe they have been born here. So, and what to say again? I don't have many other things to say, probably only that why I call it my school ethno-systemic narrative, but probably it is clear, it is quite clear to you. No. Well, it is for a number of reasons. First of all, I myself come from different disciplines. I'm not originally a psychologist or psychotherapist. I originally come from sociology and anthropology, and as a third step, I became a psychotherapist, a family psychotherapist with the school of Mara Selvini Palazzoli in Milan. Why I did this? At the time, I didn't know a famous sentence of Gregory Bateson. I don't know if you have heard about Gregory Bateson as one of the most important thinker of the last century. He was an anthropologist, but also a philosopher. And he was saying in general, being an anthropologist, you know, people choose to study sociology when they have problem with the society. They choose psychology if they have problem with themselves. And they choose anthropology when they have both problem with themselves and the society. So I decided to study sociology, anthropology, and psychotherapy. So I have a lot of problem with a lot of people and with myself, of course. And, and so the ethnosystemic narrative means that we look as our source of interpretation of the reality to the ethno means to people, to the culture, so to the culture of the people that is coming to us, to the system, not only to the single people, but to the context. They are presenting symptoms that have meaning for the context, not only for themselves. And the narrative, because we try to transform their initial narrative that is in general overwhelmed by the dominant narrative about trauma, about someone before spoke about the post-traumatic stress disease. You know that in English there are different terms to give a meaning to the suffering. One is disease. The disease is the one that is related to the medical, to the biomedical interpretation. But after, apart sickness that is related more to the service, there is another term that is much more interesting than disease, that is illness. That means how the suffering is interpreted by the person. So we look to this kind of issue and we try to transform a dominant narration to a new meaningful narrative for the person that is in front of us. So I would like to speak about many other things, but I believe the time is almost finished, and I hope that I've given you some information, some idea about how we think the issue of the psychological support to refugees. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We have 10 minutes for questions. If you like to ask us other things and describe also your other examples and reflections. Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was very inspiring. I just have the question if it's possible to have some kind of literature list.
I didn't understand
Kind
the
of a
question.
literature list. You mentioned some literature that we should follow
Ah,
probably. If probably you put the presentation that is in Italian, but maybe have some references,
Yeah.
that would be great.
Thank you again for the presentation, and I would like to ask one question is about the practical approach. You said the intervention should rebuild the context in which the symptoms are related to. If you can give like some practical hints. And another one is about the mindset of a migrant that you spoke about. And I would like to know if this concept of the Sayad will define it, the double absence will even perpetuate the trauma.
I didn't understand probably very well the last question. If through the double accents we perpetrate the trauma, what do you mean?
I mean, in the new setting where a migrant settled in, this kind of precarious situation, so to say, that it's stable. Maybe for a migrant it's a bit different, of course, but still there could be recognized some kind of wish to go back to the home country. And if the trauma started, so to say, in the home country by living in a situation that generates instability. I mean, it's kind of obvious that the answer could be yes, but if this could be perpetrated, so to say, and the trauma can be even enlarged or aggravated, so to say.
I'm not sure to have understood your question, but if I well understood, for us the main problem is to talk with people without having in mind this lens of the diagnostic, but giving them the possibility, if they want, to talk about their memory. And in general, this is facilitated if we have an open mind to the possibility to have a conversation with them. We don't have the problem to do a diagnostic that could be different by the diagnostic of the psychiatrist, an ethno-diagnostic. It's not this. The problem is to transform a relationship that is a relationship between someone that has power and knowledge and someone that has nothing, to two people with their experience, their story, that can compare their experience, canceling at all the problem of diagnostic. And of course, if you are alone in this kind of situation, it is probably a little bit more difficult. But if you are, I'm sorry this is in French, but anyway, I believe, well, anyway, I can translate. This is the setting of our work, ethnosystemic narrative. In this setting, we have, from one side, the presence of the family, of someone that could come with the family, a friend, an ethno-cultural mediator, if it is available, someone that belongs to the same ethnic group of the client, the therapist and the number of co-therapists. And we talk together about the possibility of the memory of the story of this person. We try to give some idea in order to open the possibility of interpretation, not only to arrive to a psychiatric diagnostic. And then we have to have in mind to talk about all this, the network, the social network, the juridic and the health network. We have to consider also the possibility that this person has also relationship with traditional healers and the relationship with the invisible world. The invisible world has a number of possible presence, like gods, the spirits, ancestors, dead person, phantoms, and the social network is constituted by the family, by the friends, by a network of other social workers and psychologists, etc. So we have in mind all this when we meet them. If it is possible, it is a group. It is a group with, in our experience, 6, 7 people in one room and 4, 5, 6 people in another room that is connected through the video, audio-video connection, that sometimes come to knock and to tell us, look, you are talking about this, but probably if you talk also about this other kind of issue, we could understand better the situation. So we try to complicate the situation, to avoid a linear way of thinking, and in general, this is very effective.
Any other question? Yeah, please.
Well, I wanted to ask about
Okay, so we were talking here about students, refugees. So I'd like to ask you if by becoming a student inside a university and becoming a part of a community, an academic community, may have maybe a kind of resilience itself by accessing university or by willing to access university, because until now I have heard difficulties of both universities and refugees to get access to universities. And so I'm thinking about the willing to enter, and once they enter, is being a member of this community become a protective factor in some way? Because some of foreign students I've heard, they talk about university as a safe place. So I'm thinking not only of that, what about outside the university? Is it not a safe place? So what can we do working inside university for refugee students? I don't know if that's...
Maybe there is a question for you.
Yeah, okay. It's another identity, I think. Yes, it can be part of the resilience, but it's another identity, it's a new identity that the refugee will need to assimilate. A new identity has also challenges. It can be brilliant at first, as when they arrive in the country that they wish to. Okay, yes, hooray, we arrived at the university, we arrived to Germany, the dream come true. And then then what happens? So another good point is that sometimes we try to work with people, okay, you have reached where you want to go, what then? Because that's when the journey starts. And I think, yes, it can be resilient and people can learn from it, but sometimes when they reach there and then to the thing that actually they want and they wish, then the challenge hits them, and they may want some help with that, to think about it, to talk about it. It can be a safe place, the university, but it also has its challenges. Okay, but it can be a safe place, it can be connection, it can be all of these other things, but it's both. And I think, as Professor Lossi said, we need to open the discussion, we need to open the channel for the new identity to be talked about.
I very much appreciated everyone's talk, especially when talking about the spiritual situation of a lot of refugees. I had a friend who wasn't a refugee, but in some ways was fleeing her situation as Christian in Pakistan. And she had a lot of difficulty sleeping and was plagued by, in her words, demons. Yeah, so she was in the university, and because she was in the university, that was dismissed either as something psychological or in our situation in Belgium, that is very secularized, that says, that's very anti-religion. She had a lot of difficulties also within the church, or in her situation as Christian, to find someone to help her who, I don't want to say believe her, but just to realize she needed some kind of this help between the visible and the invisible. So, and some of these students are coming to university where we're trained to be critical thinkers, and sometimes dismiss that. How is it possible in a university setting to be critical, scientific, but also to take into account the spiritual level, this invisible dimension that some people really need to find some kind of healing? I don't know if that's maybe it's too big, maybe it's not possible, I don't know.
I don't know, because I'm not working with it, but I believe that the fact of knowing and also somehow respecting the fact that people coming from other culture has other way of being in this world than us. And one of their way is to be in contact with the invisible world through different religions, through different way of thinking, etc. And respecting this is already a strong
support.
A strong issue, is a good step to give them the possibility to be integrated, not assimilated, to be integrated. And well, you know that from there is a very important anthropologist. His name is Philippe Descola. Is a French anthropologist who is now having the academic position that was of Claude Lévi-Strauss. So it is quite an important academic. He is studying since always the relationship between nature and culture. And a variation of this theme is the one of the relationship between human and non-human. And he says that we, in our earth, could be divided in 4 different typology of way of thinking. One is the Western, that is very strong in terms of imperialism, but is very little in terms of people belonging to this, and is the one in which we believe that the only being with the possibility of thinking in the world is the human being, men and women, okay? But there are other culture in which this relationship is not the same. For example, what we call animists are persons that probably are more than 4 billion people in the world that think that there is not only the human being that has the possibility of thinking, but there is also the rocks, the trees, and the animals. They say the mask is different, but the being is the same. And they are coherent with this vision. If someone that is belonging to this kind of vision is coming to us in our psychiatric service, they label them as schizophrenic. Okay? And then there are other two. It is too long to speak about this typology, but anyway, we have to consider the complexity of the world and the complexity of the culture.
I think also